Yep.
Hello, Aurelian.
Yes, hello, sorry. I don't put my camera because YouTube will not like it, let's say, for the two stream. But yes, your speakers have the link.
Okay.
Connect.
But we are not alive right now, right?
We are live, let's say.
Oh,
But what we say will not, it's only our students, I mean the students who know you and me. And, but the speakers are not yet joining. But
okay, so I would just shut down my video and wait for the others, okay?
Yes. Yes, so they are coming, I think. And as well, we have the two assistants, Miss Motamayor. I think she will connect in a few minutes. She may as well give questions, Miss Motamayor, time to time. She does it on other sessions.
Okay, how are you?
Yeah.
How are you? Fine?
Yes, I'm okay. It has been already a week of events, so it's fine. And you have your students as well watching?
Yes, they will be. They will be. We are in the last week of tests, but as soon as they finalize the test, I believe they will enter at YouTube.
Yeah, sure. At any time.
Initiate at 7:40, and some of them have a certain time to finish the test, 1 hour and 40. There are other modalities of tests that have been applied. For example, if it's an open test, you have the 24-hour time to upload in the Moodle platform. So it depends on which modality of test you are taking today, but they will be there.
Okay, great. Yes. Yeah, it is the most subscribed panel, as I told you, so as well.
Yes, I'm very excited. Yes, I think yesterday I took part in another event from Catholic University of Minas Gerais, and we were talking about that of course we are in the pandemic, but this modality of events, it's a quite good modality because you lower the costs, it's more comfortable to everybody. We had much more audience than ever in the history. So we were talking about the continuity of this modality of events, even after we have the vaccine and the herb immunization.
Yes, certainly. Because I mean, we can have speakers from any place actually this way. And,
yes, of course.
So and it's good for networking as well.
Yes, I mean, nothing. It's good when you are physically and we have the opportunity to talk.
Yes, of
course, to meet in person. But for those events where you want to gather lots of professionals from different places, it's a great alternative, even when we're not in the pandemic anymore.
Yes.
I mean, we had 200, 300 people watching yesterday, and we had never had this amount of people inside of an auditorium. So it was really great.
So yes, more events together. I mean, with the Hague and Domelder, yeah.
Yes, of course.
And Lille. So already a first student is joining.
Okay.
And the others will come in during the next minutes. Well, we'll come back.
Okay. He's helping you, this student?
No, the student will bring questions, let's say. It's easy audience if you want. Because some of them are inside WebEx, there are 37 who can directly type questions or give orally. But as the maximum of WebEx is 49 persons in a room, all the others are on YouTube. So and they will be typing their questions, and Anna Motamayor will be reading them for the speakers and for you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So yes, now the students, they had a lot of sessions in this format this week, so they get used to type their question and as well intervene sometimes with the camera as well. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
How is the weather in Brazil at this moment?
Well, it's a great weather for me. I don't like it very hot. We entered summer yesterday, but now we have a rainy season as well. So sometimes the weather is quite good. Sometimes very hot. Today it's chill. Okay. Today it's a good day. Yes,
that's good.
It's a good day. Yes, we have sun in the sky, but not too hot. We have a windy day, so it's kind of perfect for me, especially to work. When it's very hard to work as well.
I can imagine. No, yes. Here it's gloomy, rainy, like autumn in the Netherlands, let's say. But it's not cold, but it's just not very sunny.
Yes, you entered winter, right?
Officially, winter is on the 21st of December, so we are still in fall or in autumn.
Okay.
And but in the Netherlands, they celebrate as well Saint Nicholas, which is a variation of Santa Claus, let's say. But it's it's at the beginning of it's like in Germany. It's at the beginning of December. So in many families are starting to prepare. And then once it is done, well, Santa Claus is more for the other nationalities, let's say. So, but yes, it's pretty good at this moment.
And your classes are going to the end of December, or no?
Sorry?
The classes at the Hague are going to the end of December?
Until, I think the 18th of December.
All right.
So we have maybe still 3-4 weeks, and then holidays, and we come back with still a few weeks of class and then exams, and then hello, Miss Dhanuka. Hello from the Netherlands.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello, Miss Dhanuka, how are you?
Hello there.
Good, how are you?
I'm fine, hello in New Delhi. So
Yeah, I have a presentation. Can I just check that I can? It's coming.
Yes, you can check. Yeah, still have time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's good because the connection between Brazil, the Netherlands, and India works well. So it's already a good thing. So
Oh, let me see if I can. Can you see me? Can you see it?
Yes, yes, we do.
Yeah. All right. Okay, great.
Great, thank you.
I'm gonna. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep my video off. I'll keep it on in the beginning, then I'll keep it off.
Okay, perfect.
And then I'll put it on when I speak. Yeah. That just helps with the bandwidth.
Thank you.
All right.
So yes, I'm happy that WebEx works between Brazil and India because it is 14,000 kilometers.
It will, but it's great. I mean, really nice. The connection is great.
Yeah, because when I was using it with Fiji, it was not working that well. So yeah, it's good. We have as well Miss Idowu-Ojo, your speaker.
Ojo.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Idowu-Ojo. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
And you are calling from Ethiopia or Gambia?
He's joining from Cairo.
Cairo. Ah, you are from
Yes.
You are calling from Egypt. Okay. Yeah. So we have a different speaker already connected, and the other names you see are our students. So we'll be able to bring questions as well. And this is the last speaker, Miss Liu.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Liu.
Hi.
You are,
Good.
You are in Eindhoven at this moment.
Hi.
Lydia, you are in Eindhoven?
Yes.
Hello, Professor. How are you?
Hi.
Tudo bem, professor? Bom
E
vê-lo.
você, Lorena?
Tudo jóia, graças a Deus.
Quero ver como é que... Hi, everybody.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Very nice to meet you finally, Miss Lorena.
Yes, how are you, Miss
I'm
Montemayor? How are you?
Very good.
Great to see you.
Yes, you too. It's looking like it will be a success today, so fingers crossed.
Yes, it will be a hit, as always. E aí, professor, tudo bem?
Tudo, estou apanhando um pouquinho aqui, quero ver como compartilho. Ontem, meia-noite, identifiquei que tinha um erro no slide, você acredita?
Nossa Senhora. O senhor está morando em Brasília, professor?
Não, por enquanto eu estou aqui, né, que trabalho remoto.
Ah, tá, porque eu vi que o celular do senhor mudou, né?
Mudou.
Eu achei que o senhor tinha mudado.
Eu vou, a rigor, minha função é lá agora.
Entendi.
Mas eu estou trabalhando remotamente.
Que bom. O senhor pode testar, se o senhor quiser, o compartilhamento de tela agora.
É isso que eu vou tentar aqui agora.
Isso.
Deixa eu pegar meu... E você, Lorena, tá bem?
Tudo bem, professor. Entreguei minha tese.
Ó,
Já
e
vou
a defesa?
defendê-la agora em dezembro.
Tá livre dessa tarefa.
I was wondering how can I blur the background?
Hello, Mr. Sadipo, how are you?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm very well, thank you.
Não.
Ainda não está me enxergando, não, professor.
Então, estou com os livros abertos.
Really, and I think the only one missing is Professor Buscaglia, right?
Here I am.
Oh, Professor, how are you?
How are you? Good to hear. Yeah, now I see you only. Now I can see you too. Can you see me?
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
There we go. Nice to meet you all.
Nice
Very
meeting
nice
you.
to meet you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How to blur the background if we have this setting in this tool?
Maybe if you go to video settings, I'm not sure if you can blur it.
I think in WebEx we don't have this tool, unfortunately.
When you
We
go
have
to
in
video
Teams, but
settings,
not in WebEx.
It exists on audio and video, and then there is in the bottom there. The second to last is change to virtual background, and clicking that gives you options to either change the virtual background or blur it, or just have it blank out.
Looks strange.
Professor Bastianetto, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Great. So whenever you like, we start.
Yes, please. So let's start. Good morning, afternoon, and evening to you all, depending on which time zone you are. It's a great pleasure to be here today. My name is Bastianetto. I am a professor of procedural law and international law at John Wilder Law School in Belo Horizonte, a city in Brazil. It is a great pleasure to be here hosting today you all, 6 different participants from this wonderful panel with the theme of careers outside Europe. So ENE Employment Network event was able to gather 6 participants from 6 different continents in a unique panel promoted by the Hague University of Applied Sciences and coordinated by Professor Aurélien Lorange. And I am honored and appreciate a lot being here today hosting you all. Without further ado, I'd like to present briefly each one of the participants of this panel. And please, I will be very brief, so when you have the floor and if you'd like to complement your presentation, to complement your personal experience, please be kind to do so. So I'm going to welcome and greet you according to the order of presentation. So the first one presenting will be Professor Buscaglia. Professor Buscaglia is a senior research scholar from Columbia University in the United States and also a president of Instituto de Acción Ciudadana de México. The second, so thank you a lot, Professor, for being here, for your presence. The second presenting.
It's my pleasure to be with all of you. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. The second presenting will be Professor Dr. José Adercio Leite Sampaio. Professor José Adercio is a federal prosecutor from Brazil and also a professor of constitutional law at John Wilder Law School in Belo Horizonte, Brazil. Thank you very much, Professor, for your presence and for being with us today in this unique panel. The third one presenting will be Ms. Dhanuka. Ms. Dhanuka is the head of the program of prison reforms from India. It is a pleasure to have you here, Ms. Dhanuka. Thank you very much for your presence. The fourth presenting will be Ms. Idowu-Ojo. Ms. Idowu-Ojo is a senior legal officer of the African Union Commission. Thank you very much, Ms. Idowu-Ojo, for being here with us today. The fifth presenting this panel of today is Mr. Sodipo. Mr. Sodipo is a senior manager and also an export development advisor of the Export-Import African Bank. Thank you very much, Mr. Sodipo, for your presence. And last but not least, Ms. Liu, which was a former student from The Hague and currently is an international mobility officer at Vanderlande in the Netherlands. Thank you very much, Ms. Lee, for your presence. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Professor Buscaglia. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much. Here is 14:06, so I will not take more than 20 minutes. First, I would like to thank you and thank the organizers for this wonderful invitation, and especially our colleague Aurélien Lorange, Aurélien Lorange made sure that I could be here through a very complicated logistics because of my travel. The work I do from an academic standpoint and from a practitioner standpoint in the legal field is law and economics. Law and economics is a scientific discipline that is not just the mix of law plus economics. It has its own methodologies, it has its own way of thinking. And what we try to do is to determine what are the incentives, the economic incentives created by the laws. Some laws achieve their objective. Whenever you read an initiative of a law, you have the motives of the objectives of the law. And we try to find out if the objectives are achieved. And we focus on the economic objectives of the law. For example, when we examine an anti-money laundering law, we try to determine if that law has an effect on money laundering and economic behavior. So there you have law and economics. And then we try to find out how economics has an impact on the law. So we turn it around. We look at how economic behavior has an impact on the constitution of the law, through lobbies, for example, or through criminal enterprises when they fund political campaigns illegally. Then we start seeing members of Congress obeying to criminal enterprises. So economic crimes, the economics of crime, has an impact on the nature of the law. So we have a two-way around. Law has an impact on economic behavior, and economic behavior, criminal economic behavior, or honest economic behavior has an impact on the nature of the law. So law and economics of crime, that is the law and economics of criminal behavior, is my field. And in this regard, what I do empirically when I work with judges, prosecutors, police, intelligence agencies from many countries around the world is I'm usually invited by one of those branches, and they ask me if I can assess the impact of a new law that they're considering, or the expected income of a new law, or the economic impact of a law that they have in place in the books. So the first thing we try to do is to determine if there is a gap between the law in the books and the law in action. That is, we try to determine if the law is actually applied as it is written, or if you have, for example, abuses of judicial discretion. If you have a whole range of applications of the law that are far away from the theoretical intention of the law. So we try to find the gap between the laws in the books and the laws in action within the organized crime domain. That's my field. Other colleagues of mine focus on labor laws. Other colleagues of mine focus on family law. My field is criminal law applied to criminal enterprises. So, for example, we find out if the United Nations Convention Against Organized Crime, that is an international legal instrument that has been ratified by more than 130 countries, including Brazil, the Netherlands, most countries around the world, if that convention has an impact on the scale and scope of 23 types of organized crime. Drug trafficking is one type of organized crime. Human trafficking is another type of organized crime. Smuggling of migrants is another type of organized crime. And one of the latest works in research that I've been performing is on the trafficking of fake medical products, fake pharmaceuticals. And that's really important at this time because of COVID. It's really important at this time, or at any time, because people die due to that. We have between 79,000 and 169,000 of children dying every year of pneumonia because of fake medicines, according to the World Health Organization. Children. We have 180,000 people dying because of fake anti-malaria pills. In other words, you have real consequences. It's not just about law and economics, it's about human life at the end. So we try to find out if the United Nations Convention Against Organized Crime, and if you go to the website of the UN, you will see that that convention is an international legal instrument, is an international law adapted to each of the laws of each country, Brazil, The Hague, and each of the articles of that convention can be assessed. So here's where my second field of knowledge comes in, that is jurimetrics. Jurimetrics is the use of statistics to measure the performance of the judicial system to measure the performance of the regulatory system, to measure the performance of corporate law, to measure the performance of the legal and judicial fields. So we have to measure the performance of the United Nations Convention Against Organized Crime. So in order to do that, we need to measure what we call in statistics variables that measure each of the articles of the Convention Against Organized Crime. Some of those variables could be binary variables. For example, if a specific technique of investigation is applied in a country, for example, undercover agents. No, that's a technique of investigation that you can find in Article 35 of the UN Convention Against Organized Crime. So we find out if that technique is actually applied or not applied. So that can be measured. So then we have other variables that can be measured, that is the quality of justice. So we measure the frequency of mistakes, of errors that judges make in case files, specifically on organized crime case files that we sample every year in each country. So we go to a country with the permission of the judiciary, we sample a proportion of the cases on organized crime, could be drug trafficking, human trafficking, all those 23 types of crimes that I'm talking about, trafficking of pharmaceutical products, and we measure if judges make procedural mistakes, substantive mistakes in the application of the law. So that's a variable of quality of justice. Then we have other variables measuring if money laundering statutes are being applied. And in organized crime cases, it's almost impossible not to consider applying money laundering statutes, because by definition, you're supposed to go after the money of the criminal enterprise. So somehow you're supposed to apply money laundering statutes. You would be surprised that in Mexico, in 98% of the organized crime cases, they do not apply money laundering statutes. So that's one of the reasons that we have Mexico as an amusement park for organized crime. In Brazil, the proportion of case files that are being addressed through money laundering is much higher, much at the federal level. At the federal level is much higher. In almost all of them, you have some degree, some investigation addressing money laundering, and it may be successful, it may not be successful, but at least they try. So we measure each article of the UN Convention Against Corruption and Against Organized Crime. Those are two conventions of the UN that we address. And then we find out if those measures taken by the states against organized crime in accordance to the UN Convention Against Corruption and the UN Convention Against Organized Crime, we find out if those measures that we measure for each article of the conventions, if they have an impact on a variable called the organized crime variable. Now, the organized crime variable that we measure is based on gatherings of data from many institutions, starting from the UN on human trafficking, the trafficking of pharmaceuticals. A lot of those variables come from the World Customs Union organization, the World Customs Organization. It comes from an Institute for Pharmaceutical Security, for example, that is another institution measuring cases on the trafficking of pharmaceuticals. Then we have Interpol that also provides variables. So what we do is we gather data from many institutions addressing 23 types of organized crime, and we compile weighted average, like the Dow Jones in the stock market, a weighted average of all those types of crimes measured by different institutions. And we developed an organized crime indicator that for the first time was published by the United Nations in an article that we wrote in 2003 with a Dutch criminologist, Jan van Dijk. He and I wrote this piece where for the first time we approach the organized crime index as objective indicators, not perceptions, but objective indicators of crime. So we have to interact with many institutions, as you can see in every country, judicial institutions, regulatory agencies dealing with banks, no, regulation of banks. We have to deal with civil society because the UN Convention Against Organized Crime has an article, Article 31, that addresses the role of civil society, in preventing organized crime, the social prevention of organized crime. So we address civil society. We also interact with authorities from the legislative domain, from the executive domain. So we really go into the intestine of the public sector and civil society in each of the countries that we address. Now, we cannot do this every year because it's very expensive, and this is an academic project. So we wish we could have the resources to go to every country like the UN does or like the World Bank does every single year to do this. So we visit every country every 5-6 years, but we can measure improvements in organized crime or worsening of the organized crime indicator. And we want to find out what is the reason for those improvements in the organized crime indicator, in this weighted average that I talked to you before. What reasons are behind it? What are the factors that mostly explain the increases of organized crime or the decreases of organized crime? And then we apply in statistics what we call non-parametric regressions. That is to find out from all those variables that we measured from the UN Convention Against Organized Crime, the UN Convention Against Corruption, from all those variables that we measure from every single article of the convention, we measure which articles are the most important variables that explain the decrease of organized crime or the increase of organized crime. I hope it's clear so far. So this is important because every country has a different story. Every country is different in its own way. Not only because of the social legal traditions, but also because every country has a different arrangement of their judicial authorities. For example, in Colombia, the prosecutor belongs to the judicial branch. In Mexico, it is autonomous. In other countries, belongs to the executive domain. So we cannot make a general statement about this magic bullet will solve all your problems. So there's some international lessons that we can gather from this analysis. Now, I will focus now for just 2 minutes in one of the variables that is, because of COVID, is really important. That is the trafficking, the illegal trafficking of pharmaceutical products. There we have a problem because the only region that has a legal instrument that forces countries to coordinate a bit their policies to fight this trafficking of medical products, pharmaceuticals, medical equipment that kills so many people. The only region that has a legal instrument that forces the region to coordinate is the European Union. They have the Medicrime Convention that is focused just on the trafficking of pharmaceutical products. And now we're in the process of assessing if that convention has positive results in reducing the amount of trafficking. The problem is that the production countries are not within the European Union. That's one problem. So they're not within the convention. China and India are the main countries where this illegal fake medicines, to use a much more normal term, fake medicines are produced. India first, China second. So that's one problem. So we do not have an international legal instrument like the UN Convention Against Organized Crime. So that's the first gap. Some countries do not even criminalize the buying and the selling of fake medicines. For some countries, it's just a health law violation. For many of these countries, there's no coordination between the health authorities, customs authorities, police authorities, judicial authorities are not coordinating in any way, like in 77% of the countries that we have sampled. Therefore, you can imagine that in those countries, the trafficking of illegal pharmaceuticals is huge. Argentina just seized a cargo of 4 million packages of ibuprofen, for example. Argentina, next to Brazil. So this is not being addressed in the same way that we address corruption, organized crime, money laundering through international legal instruments. And therefore, this type of trafficking is increasing at incredibly high rates as we speak since 2012. The free trade agreements do help because you have less barriers to trade and it's easier for organized crime. That's the dark side of organized crime. This is the dark side of free trade agreements. It makes it easier for these medicines to penetrate the European market, coming from China, coming from India, coming surprisingly from Saudi Arabia, coming from all these countries that are not within any kind of trade agreement, any kind of legal agreement. So there we have a big problem. Lack of coordination. So this is something that we are assessing right now in order to understand if one of the 23 types of organized crime that we're measuring, the trafficking of pharmaceuticals, is going up or down. Now, finally, because I only have 2 more minutes, the point here is that we have to expect that given the fact that organized crime that is dedicated to the trafficking of pharmaceutical products and medical equipment has been increasing incredibly during the past 5 years, at more than 35% increase in the last 5 years, based on the data coming from Interpol, based on the data coming from the World Customs Organization, and based on the data from case files that we examined, we have a 35% approximate increase. Now, what we're looking at since March of this year is that the production and the distribution of PPEs, for example, the personal protective equipment that we see in hospitals now during this COVID pandemic, that trafficking of fake PPEs has been increasing globally through organizations that have become more global since March of 2020, more global in their production capacity, more global in their distribution capacity, more global in their capacity to infiltrate the supply chains, and more global in their capacity to infiltrate the wholesale domain. So we see the same thing for test kits for COVID, an incredible globalization in the criminal production of fake test kits. We see that organized crime, through some of the information I have, I cannot reveal publicly, but some of this production of organized crime is developing in this domain that affects COVID, the pandemia, is also starting to affect the production of fake vaccines before the vaccines have been approved. So these guys already are preparing their market for the trafficking of fake vaccines in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, etc. So we have a real problem within this domain. This is the only variable of the 23 variables of organized crime that we cannot control, in the sense that we see that is increasing nonstop in the past 5 years in all the countries that we have seen, even the US, even the European Union. The other variables, drug trafficking, human trafficking, in some countries they're going up, in some countries they're going down. In this variable of the trafficking of illegal pharmaceuticals, it's going up everywhere, everywhere. So we have a lack of legal coordination, a lack of judicial coordination. We have some great efforts by Interpol, for example, in their Operation Pangea. That is an operation that has been running for a few years, but that's a very small effort compared to what you should be seeing right now, especially during these times of pandemic. So it's 2:26 and I stop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your brilliant presentation. Indeed, responsive regulation is, as you said, is one of our worries here in Brazil. And we have been following, especially EPA's work from the United States, Environmental Protection Agency. Professor José Adercio may tell you more about that. And also the Office of Information and Regulation Affairs you had during Obama's government was also very important for us to improve our responsive regulation. So thank you very much for your presentation. So now I will give the floor to Professor José Adercio Leite Sampaio. Please, Professor, you have. Professor, you have to activate your microphone. Professor, are you listening to me?
You're still muted. We can't hear you.
Yes, Professor,
Got it.
please. Okay.
Got it. Got it. Can you see my slides or not? Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Hey University, Professor Aurelian Lohange, and my colleague. And I think I can say so. My friend Lorena. I will try to show you a panoramic legal career, especially in public area in Brazil, but I will focus on my activity and that it's public ministry. I will try to share because it's not easy to understand the distribution of the charge of the functions among them. But I will try. Just to see that we have in Brazil four different. I will show the main career because we have assistant and so on. But I will try to show a panoramic view of them. Well, we have judges, we have society attorney, that it's public ministry, like we say in Brazil. We have state attorney, it's the defense of the states, union, and so on. And we have a public defender. In Brazil, we have a crazy distribution of competence among the different judicial area. I will try to show, sorry, because we have here in Portuguese, I couldn't make the translation, but it's not the focus of my presentation. Just to show you the crazy distribution of the competence in Brazil. We have specialized justice, labor, electoral, and military justice. And we have on the left side the ordinary or common justice. What is it's that things that are not in the specialized justice. It's not electoral, it's not labor law, it's not military law, sorry. Well, I will just to show you that we have many superior courts. In the top of the top, we have, it's not correct here, it's Federal Supreme Court. It's a top of the judiciary and functions as a constitutional court in Brazil. It's a peculiar institution, maybe similar to Mexico, Mexican Federal Supreme Court, and the same in Argentina. But we have some difference. I cannot explain that, but right now. But it's not my focus. But just to say that the Federal Supreme Court in Brazil has a force and many competences, and in the peculiar moment that we are living in Brazil. but it's a issue to another speech. Well, we have, in Brazil, we are federal state. We have federal justice and state justice. The Constitution makes the allocation of competence and federal level and in the state level. Well, we have different kind of access, but I can say the first instance of all kind of justices, we have a public competition of legal knowledge tests and title. We have the participation of the bar association in Brazil. In the first instance, I can say that there is no type or kind of intervention of politicians. It's really a serious public competition. But in the second instance, in Superior Court, we have participation of the President and the Senate. It depends on the court we are trying to explain. But it's not my fault, like I said. Well, the public procurement, it's trying to translate the Procuratura Pública in Italian, we adopt in Brazil. We have three kinds. Society attorney, it's public ministry, like I said before. State attorney, it's public advocacy, it's the defense of the state, the municipalities, and the union and justice. And we have an important institution. It's not mine, but it's so important because, like everybody knows, I think so, Brazil has a symmetrical society, and we need so much equal protection and application of law. It's not only in law and books, but in law and the street, especially in law and operation before justices or judges. We have, so the public defender. The public defender is in charge to defend, of course, the needy and the poor people. It's so important because it's a kind to make difference in Brazil. Well, all those has to access through the public competition, like I said before. The public defender's office, we have, by the Constitution, an autonomous and independent institution. And they have many responsibility and competence. I have no time to explain, but it's so important for me to say that, well, in my career, I'm part of public ministry. Public ministry, I know that it's not a good translation, but it's the translation, it's the possible translation, because actually we have a peculiar institution in Brazil comparing with the other countries. In the other countries, the public ministry, Fiscalia, Prosecutor service, and so on, have the only tasks in the criminal area. It's not the case of Brazil. We are an institution that has functional and administrative autonomy. It's a kind of autonomy that make us independent of the executive and it's so important for our function in Brazil? Well, the members enjoy institutional guarantees, basically the same of the judges. We have vitality and function till 70 or 75 years old, and we have functional independence. It's so important, of course. I can do what I can think it's right before the law. No chief, no order comes from the top of the institution. After, if I have time, I will explain my action in a case in Brazil that was for us two major environmental disaster, but I will try if I have time. Well, public ministry in Brazil. We have a federal level, and the federal level we have four kinds of area. We have federal public ministry, that it's my institution, that acts before the federal justice, superior electoral court, superior federal court, and federal Supreme Court. We have public ministry of labor, or labor public ministry, that acts in the labor courts, and the military public ministry that acts before the military justice. And we have a public ministry of federal district, like, you know, Brasilia, it's the capital of Brazil, and we have, like in every federal state, we have a federal district, or like in the U.S., District of Columbia, and so on. And we have a public ministry and that. And of course, we have 26 states, and we have in each one state public ministry. Let me see if I can. Well, it's important to say because we have a chief. It's Attorney General of the Republic. I don't know if it's best translation, but I think it's. I can explain the idea more than the words. The Attorney General is chosen within the career by the president, but the president indicates the name to the federal Senate, and getting approval, the president nominates to a mandate of 2 years, okay? But like I said, the Attorney General cannot order myself that acts in the second instance in the public, in the federal public ministry. And just a minute, sorry. Well, which function we have? The Brazilian public ministry. We have, we act before judges, of course, and we act extrajudicially. We can investigate illicit, civil and criminal illicit. The public ministry can make agreement in civil and in criminal area, and of course take the necessary legal action. We have action in electoral area. We are not only but we have function to control the electoral process with many tasks around the electoral campaign and so on. Well, and we have a role and constitutional control or judicial review, if you prefer. The general attorney acts before the Supreme Court and file. We have many actions of constitutional control. It's not correct control, of course. It can be translated like that, but I prefer constitutional control, as I think it's in other side of the world. And the general attorney or attorney general, it's only in our institution that has competence to issue. And all of us can present a constitutionality incident before any judges, and we called concrete constitutional control. We have action for assignment of liability of public agent and civil improbity or administrative improbity. It's different from criminal area. Here, it's a civil action, and it's a civil action that try to punish public official who commits acts of corruption, and but it's in the civil area, violation of a principle of good public administration, and the penalties are severe. We have suspension of course, it could be suspension of political rights, loss of the function, and so on. And not to argue more, of course, we have performance in the criminal proceeding, like and everywhere. It's the same. We have in Brazil the sole holder of public criminal action. And this second task, it's a challenge because we have to carry out external control of police activity. Like you can find out, it's not easy because we have many problems with the police activity. We have a legacy of authoritarian regime, and we have many to do to improve our policy system. But it's challenge. It's a task that we have to do, and we try to do the best. Well, and I think this one, acting as defender of collective rights, it's different from other public ministry in the world. We are author of public civil action. It's a translate because we say in Brazil, ação civil pública. It's like oh my God, in US class action. Okay, and we can issue a lawsuit in defense of fundamental rights, especially collective rights as consumer rights, antitrust right, right to health, environment, and in defense of minorities, against violence against women. In Brazil, we have a problem in that area, and the elder and minors and so on. We have many tasks and this activity, and it's my action because I'm acting in environmental area and public ministry. Now I'm doing a mix. We are trying to defend the environment, and I'm acting as well in criminal area. And we have to act as public ministry, and every single action that has public and social interest. We are not procedural part, but we act. It's in Latin because I have no translation to English. Maybe someone can help me. It's custos iuris. It's like I don't know how can I say that, but we have to guarantee that law is being applied correctly, respect fundamental law rights, and the due process of law. It's a kind of activity. I know in other countries the public ministry has the same one. And the last one, but not less important, we have an area, especially in federal public ministry, that it's in the defense of human and citizen rights. We act in defense of indigenous people, in defense of other minority like black people and so on. And it's another challenge and country. I know it's not only in Brazil, but I have to say in Brazil because it's my country. I think I can. I hope I can show you the panoramic career in Brazil, and especially that one, and that is public ministry. Again, I would like Hague University, Lorena, Professor Lorange, and everybody for the opportunity to be here with you. And sorry because I have to go out early. I know. I ask you, Lorena. It'll be in the YouTube. Okay.
Yes,
and after I will get.
It is live, Professor, on YouTube. It is streaming live.
Okay. No, because later I'll see everybody speaking, because for me it's so important. And after, if you can get me the link, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your thoughtful presentation. Thank you very much for your taking part in this event. Just complimenting Professor José Adercio, the public ministry, what we call the prosecutors in Brazil, they are the juridical system curator, which is very, very important, what we call custos legis. So this is very important because they have a constitutional responsibility of curating the juridical system. It's not defending the state, it's on the contrary. They are curators of the juridical system, as well as they are legitimized for filing petitions of unconstitutionality before the Supreme Court in the concentrated and abstract review, and also they are, of course, legitimized to file in the concrete and diffuse control, because we have both in Brazil. And also nowadays, the public ministry has a great responsibility in what we call lenience agreements and also conduct agreements, which are part of law of economics, which Professor Buscaglia told us about. So there's responsive regulation through the persecutio criminis, through during the investigation of a crime, and giving benefits to companies, to legal entities, and to natural persons as well, in order to cooperate with the juridical system. So thank you very much, Professor. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Lorena.
Now I give the floor to Ms. Dhanuka. Please, Ms. Dhanuka, you have the floor.
Yes. Hi. Okay, let me just quickly put on my PowerPoint for today. I hope everyone can see this. So thank you so much for having me here today. I've listened with much interest about what the other esteemed panelists has had to talk about, and I'm going to talk about a little bit career outside mainstream law, professions that we often think of, law, public defenders, litigation. That's indeed, litigation is very close to my heart. It has always been. But somewhere down, my law career, when, in my interns and others, I got interested into the field of human rights. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, how even though you belong to Europe, or you've done probably your graduate degree from Europe, how you can actually work in different parts of the world and, be able to use that to the best benefit of all, and also to your own personal growth and development. So, yeah, I'm going to start with talking a little bit about the organization I work for, which is called the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. So, 1 second, let me put it on. Yes. So the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, it's an independent, non-governmental international organization. It's headquartered in New Delhi in India, but we also have offices in London and in Ghana. And our mandate is to work for the practical realization of human rights through research, advocacy, and engagement, mobilization in the Commonwealth. We specialize in 2 areas of work. There's access to justice and access to information. Both are very broad areas of engagement that we are often, I think everything that goes on in terms of human rights in a particular country can actually be explained within, or it is covered between these 2 very large areas of work, which is an advantage for us because that means that we can be engaged and involved in addressing human rights violations across a large number, of issues and various aspects. So, as I said, CHRI, I am the head. At CHRI, I am the head of the Prison Reforms Program, which is housed within the Access to Justice framework, which has another program called the Police Reforms Program. As the Prison Reform Program head, we have a number of areas we work on. Our program is more than 20 years old. I have been with this program since 2008, which makes me 12 years old in this organization. The core areas of what we work on is we work on prison conditions and oversight, that is prison monitoring. We work on preventing unnecessary pretrial detention. I'm sure a lot of the people from law background would be aware that the pretrial rates across the entire world have really increased over the past 10 years. And there's a lot said and written about pretrial detention and the nightmares or the horrors of extended pretrial detention that so many people in the world have to go through each year. Ensuring aid for persons in custody, which is the work around public defenders or private state-funded legal aid lawyers or pro bono lawyering, etc. come in. We work on securing rights of vulnerable prisoners, including women, LGBT persons, foreign national prisoners, including asylum seekers and refugees. As a, it's a coincidence, I've just completed the launch of our first report in India looking at the issues of transgender persons in prisons. And, I think an area to really look on in terms of, interest, because people develop specific interest over the year, is to look at vulnerable groups, because there's so much to learn and there's so much to do that it offers a lot of opportunity. How we do it? So our tools are quite varied. We look at evidence-based research, we do advocacy, we do capacity building, we engage with systems, we engage with policies, we engage on the ground. So there's a lot more. I'll talk about it in detail later on. So let me talk about me, so that you get a context of how and where I come from. So I was inspired by my grandfather to become a lawyer. He was a renowned lawyer and a very renowned criminal lawyer. And so, which is why I chose to pursue law. After I graduated, I have litigated for a year in one of the courts in India. And after that, I pursued a master's degree from the UK, specializing in criminal justice issues. And that is where I developed an even keener interest on working on prisons. As fate may be, when I came back, Commonwealth CHRI had an opening in its prison reforms program, and I joined it, and here I am still working with it. 3 years back, I became the head. So I have, I've lived across several cities in India. India is quite vast. We have a lot of, there's a lot of distances between, one pole to another. And I have spent, I've been in different states and cities, and I have learned and picked up a lot of things. And I have also traveled extensively in India and outside. I go for a lot of conferences, etc. And I have come to believe that, when you have a limited outlook, if you have a limited geographical outlook, then you tend to learn less. And when you go out, when there's no barrier to your learnings or barriers to the things you see, then there's a lot of learning, and you can actually do a lot of application of that learning in different jurisdictions, and that you get with time, and that you only get with exposure. Which is why to me it's when I got the topic, it's about careers outside of Europe, I thought that's definitely something that I want to focus on, about how it is so valuable, and it is such a good opportunity for people to be able to work in other jurisdictions apart from where you are from, which you feel more comfortable in working in. So it's certainly a challenge to work in another jurisdiction, but definitely the challenge is the most exciting part of the job. So right now I'm leading a team of 10 motivated individuals. I try and mentor them to be able to do the most we can out of the program, and to change the systems or change things that happen here. And the good part is that we do often lead into getting people released or changing systems, changing policies, and that's probably the best thing about everything. The nature of our work at CHRI, especially on prison reforms, it's a very elaborate program now that it's been there for so many years. And we all know prisons, of course, have a lot of, issues within itself, because it's in a way, it is a world inside, the world. It's a closed door, iron curtained world, if we may say so. And I'm talking about it because, just to give a sense of, what are the different areas of work one could do when you're looking at something related to prisons. So our areas of work, as I talked about earlier, were prison conditions, pretrial detention, representation, court practices. How we work is we do a lot of research studies. So there's a lot of research involved if you want to do it. We do litigation in Supreme Courts and High Courts. So there's, for those who have the liking for litigation, that's something that is quite interesting, because you get to really affect the lives of a lot of people. We do advocacy with government, state bodies, state policies, policy framing and making, which gives us an opportunity to apply what we've learned, in a setting which is practical, to actually make things better or streamline certain things. We do a lot of trainings. Trainings are interesting because they're a two-way learning tool. While you're sharing with them what you know, at the same time, they share with you what their experience is on the ground, which is really important to know, because you can't have the one of the issues that is size is about the top bottom approach, because when you're only at the top, you really don't know what happens on the bottom, and which means that the bottom would not change if you don't know about the bottom, because everything it's complex. Every issue related to the criminal justice system is very complex. We engage with UN bodies as well as part of our work. We are an implementing partner in India with UNHCR. We're working on the issues of Rohingyas in detention in prisons. We engage with UNODC in a lot of their legal aid related work, and we are quite regular in terms of we are also, as part of not this work in particular, but we do a lot of work around the UN Human Rights Council and also the UPR work. We are there's an entire team in our organization which is which focuses on that, called the International Advocacy and Programming, which probably would be something that may interest some of you today. We also get a chance to write articles for the media. So it's a mix of a lot of things that we really like. We often get to also be creative. When we're putting out content, now everything's about social media, and there's so much happening around it all the time. And a part of our work when you're looking at legal aid or we're looking at prisons is awareness. And we try really hard to prepare a lot of these materials for prisoners, posters and pamphlets and flyers, and it's very unique. It's a very creative opportunity. It's an expression of your understanding in a way which is easier. It's like breaking law into easier, into easy language, something that's easily accessible by people. And how do you ensure that? So that itself, like doing certain things makes your outreach. So for instance, India has at any point of time 4 lakh prisoners, which is around it's like 0.4 million prisoners. So it's quite an achievement when you get to get something out to them which that they're actually seeing. What have I learned in my work, and which is what continues, which is what has made me continue with what I do is, as a lawyer, as somebody from the law profession, you can really contribute immensely in the field of human rights. So I really love litigation, but at one point I realized that in litigation I am only I am limited in my outreach, in a sense that I can only assist the people who are my clients. I can't go beyond that. And that is something which working with a civil society organization gave me, is that I could work on issues, or I could work with people who actually had nobody else looking after them, or had no one else really looking in it in that sense. So in some way it's a different sense of contentment altogether. As I put it next, you can not only change the life of individuals, but you can actually change lives of many people by effectuating long-lasting policy changes. For instance, I'll say that there's been a lot of work we've done on legal aid in India with the department and the authorities here. And one very huge achievement that we had earlier this year was we've been able to, through our engagement with them, have able to streamline their entire process of documentation and reporting. We've, worked with them to come up with these formats, and which means that, a single day, like, the entire India has there are 36 states and union territories in India, and you have 664 legal services authorities, and changing the way they document and report things will actually change the lives of a lot of people. And these are the kind of opportunities that you can get when you're working with policy-based organizations, which it's difficult. A lot of people do not understand what is policy. What do you mean by policy engagements? But policy engagements are essentially a way of it's difficult because it's very difficult to ascertain what you change. You can't really assess the impact. Because you don't see a day-to-day thing. Okay, I did this and 10 people got released. That's not the kind of change that you can actually assess when it comes to policy. But it's more about a system lacked this particular parameter, and now it is there. So it's a different kind of assessment, but it's very valuable because it is impacting people you don't even know or have met. So it is very valuable in terms of the overall overarching achievements of whatever you may achieve. Engagement, I've learned, engagement in human rights gives you a wide range of opportunities. You can work on the grassroots. You can work with people, with systems, with communities, making direct interventions in people's lives. You can work with systems. As I said, I was explaining about policy change. You can mobilize communities and people to stand against an injustice. This is also a very important part, is mobilizing communities, and this is where social media has been very important in these recent days, is to mobilize a community which otherwise would probably people didn't have an opinion in earlier times, or they had an opinion, they didn't have an avenue to share it. Now you can mobilize communities, mobilize those opinions, and bring some collectiveness through engaging in these kind of activities. You can right a wrong that ensure that people's rights are protected. This is individual. You see an injustice, you do something about it. This really makes the law degree a lot more meaningful for a lot of people. You can increase awareness and knowledge of people around you to enable them in realizing their rights. So when we say realizing their rights, it's important that people have that people are aware, or people need to know their rights, then only they can actually realize them. So engaging in activities which help you do that. So within the human rights framework as well, and this I'm only talking about prisons, but these are applicable for any areas of work you want to do. You want to work on victims' rights, you want to work on, policing, or you want to work on information. There's so many streams, but human rights gives you a really, really broad belt of, places where you can work on. And in some organizations like CHI, you get to work on almost all of it. And, because there are different projects and, do things differently. One other thing is, like the whole point is that, a career in human rights is very satisfying because you're knowing that your efforts are affecting, the life of a person or a group of people. So, these issues, for instance, I'll talk about, there was once a prisoner, a Palestinian prisoner, who was imprisoned for 25 years before we could actually locate his family in the Gaza Strip. And we could, after a lot of effort, ensure that he gets his passport, he gets the necessary documents, and he goes back to his home country after 27 years. His family did not even know that he was alive. And the day when his niece actually spoke to him, that's in a memory that will, actually is etched in your heart. And we know that, if it weren't for us, that person would actually still have been in a prison. And, these are the kind of satisfying moments which encourage. And yeah, of course, they are very inspiring, I'm sure. Okay, so, to think about why would somebody choose a career outside Europe? I feel there's been, in recent times, there's an increasing opportunity in comparative research and advocacy. There's a lot of work going on where, there's this whole thing about cross-sharing, cross-learning, connecting. If you look at all these international meetings or international conferences that happen, they always talk about connecting, they talk about sharing, they talk about collectiveness. So all of this is because there is this understanding that comparative research and advocacy, is the way forward if you're trying to change things in a particular country, because you might learn from another country what you can't really understand from staying, in your limited frame or your limited, ecosystem. The international organizations in this regard do provide an opportunity to enhance your understanding of legal frameworks in many countries. For instance, CHR's mandate is the Commonwealth, and we're now, getting into this mode where you're trying to learn a lot more about the other Commonwealth countries. And, some of the things you find out are just so, amazing. You really haven't thought of it in those ways. Some small trivia I can tell you is that I was recently doing some research and I came to know that, India has as many prisons in the Commonwealth as, the entire 51 countries have it. So, it's things like this that, it's knowledge that, you get to know the expanse of certain problems and etc., which, it's coming from there. It enables application of knowledge from your home country to another and vice versa. So when you do something, where you're working outside of your home country, you're in this situation, if you're working outside of Europe, you'll be able to, understand how different systems or other good practices that are there. You can apply your own good practices there, and you can take the good practices back to your home. That itself, is quite. It's quite knowledge building. So, it's the knowledge of multiple jurisdictions, actually encourages innovation and out of the box thinking, which is the times, that we live in now, is that, given how we all suffer from the pandemic right now, it's all about innovating and, protecting and precautions and everything. So you need to have a broader mind to be able to do that. And the more exposure you have by, working in other countries, that's what actually it enables. In terms of opportunities in India, so there's a lot of opportunities. There are, of course, you can come and, pass the laws, pass the exams, or apply to be able to practice in India. But, if you're coming from a civil law jurisdiction, you might find it difficult. The on-ground legalities would be very different. And especially for a country like India, where, we're still in this developed phase where, a lot of things are really different on the ground. It's not how it is. So, different careers, I feel, are a better choice. So you have opportunities in policy research and development. As I said, if you're bringing your knowledge from, different countries, it's always a boon. You get opportunities to teach and engage in research projects in universities. There is a lot of, demand for people from abroad coming and researching in India and teaching as well. one can opt for either grassroots engagement or policy advocacy, like what CHRI offers. There's always openings in this regard as well. It's a unique opportunity to learn how things work in a country as diverse as India, given its population, the political climate expands, the way it's structured, issues that are a lot more expounded in India, such as bribery or maybe just the breakdowns of certain things. It's an interesting learning experience to know, and I'm sure I believe my co-panelist from Brazil would also agree. I've done we have some projects with Brazil, so I know of the situation there as well. And then in terms of CHRI, we do offer stipendary positions in addition to the general recruitment and volunteerships that are there with CHRI. So it's of course an offer to people can apply for jobs or for anything of that sort. So I'm going to end with some small very inspiring thoughts which I felt was quite relevant when we're talking about careers outside of your home country. So there's Mahatma Gandhi, of course, who said, in a gentle way you can shake the world. You have Malala, who said, when the whole world is silent, when even one voice becomes powerful, doesn't matter where it's from. And this is from Abraham Lincoln, and says, in life, strength can take many forms, but there's nothing quite as strong as standing up for someone who needs it. No matter where you're from or how little you are, one thing that can never be taken away from you is your voice. And that's true for, I think people that are there in all parts of the world. And, I'm going to end on this and, look forward to any questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dhanuka. Actually, it was really, really important for me personally, your lecture, because in Brazil, you were aware of that. The Federal Supreme Court has declared that we are in a permanent state of unconstitutionality due to our prisons conditions. So we have been cross-fertilization, and we have been cross-fertilizing and cross-investigation other countries, what they have been doing concerning prison reforms. And it will be really, really nice to network with you further about this, because we have been in practicing now public policies of public and private partnerships concerning prison reforms. And I have my personal critics about that as well. But further, we talk more about that. Thank you very much for your lecture. And now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Idowu-Ojo. So please, Ms. Idowu-Ojo, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. And good afternoon from Gambia, West Africa, where it's about 2:15 p.m. here. Good afternoon, moderator and my fellow panelists, also to the students and all participants tuned into the event. I'm so glad I'm taking the floor after the last speaker, because she has set the tone for human rights work, because that's my own area of specialization as well. My focus will be on human rights and governance work on the African continent and the opportunities that there are for law graduates. I think I would take this approach because I think I would like to start with a brisk walk through my career path, because much of what I have to offer can be drawn from that experience. Then I would like to highlight key lessons and give some advice, and as well describe opportunities in this area, in the areas of human rights governance, rule of law, and development of the African continent, or in relation to Africa. I think primarily I was inspired to study law because I was told I was a confident child who was persuasive, and I had, as a teenager, read a novel written by Sidney Sheldon, Rage of Angels, and I think I fell in love with the main character. But as I grew older, my interest deepened, and my areas of focus were shaped by my life experiences. I think first, a family friend who is a fantastic advocate whom I watched as an 11-year-old fight to help a lady, an oppressed poor lady whose child had been stolen, to recover the child using the tools, using the law courts of Nigeria. And also much of my teenage years were characterized by military dictatorship in Nigeria. and I became very interested in issues of access to justice, state responsibility, and also, shaping the legal framework in a way that would be conducive for human rights. So after I finished my law degree, I did a master's program in human rights and democratization. And subsequently, I also did a master's in rule of law for sustainable development, and got a number of certifications in the area of human rights and good governance and governance on the continent, with a focus on Africa in particular. And in relation to experiences outside of Africa itself, because I was also of the the mindset, as the earlier speaker just said, that there is a lot of advantage in drawing as much experience as possible from the different contexts that exist. So after my master's program, I also spent a year as a backpacker, doing internships with a number of organizations. I started back home in Nigeria with an NGO called Constitutional Rights Project, because the director of that NGO was a known top human rights litigant in the African human rights system, and I wanted to be able to learn from that experience. I went on to the International Bar Association Human Rights Institute in the UK, and then subsequently to the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. I have also worked in the Nigerian context in a bid to attend also to family life and requirements, for qualification in my country. So I worked also in a law firm, particularly in the area of energy and project finance, which is also related in a way to my interests, as a development enthusiast. But much of my experience, my professional experience, has been in the area of human rights, and the most of my professional years have been spent with the African Commission on Human Rights, Human and People's Rights, where I currently work. And my engagement will be primarily focused on the work of the organization and related human rights organizations in the AU, in the African Union framework. So I have worked with the African Commission in different capacities over the past cumulatively 10 years. I worked first as a technical assistant that was seconded to the organization by partner institutions, including my former university. And for the past 8 years, I have been a senior legal officer for the protection of human rights, and I acted for about 2.5 years as the acting deputy secretary to the African Commission. And so when we talk about human rights on the African continent, and just as the preceding speaker has mentioned, human rights is quite, a rewarding profession if you are the kind of person who likes to impact the lives of people. And like I said, my own interests were shaped by my experiences, and I wanted to be able to be in a context where I could do work that would impact as many people as possible. So the African Commission on Human and People's Rights is the first human rights body of the African Union, and its mandate covers 54 of the 55 member states of the African Union. Only Morocco, which recently rejoined the AU, is yet to become a party to the instrument setting of the African Commission. The Commission deals with all sorts of human rights issues, all generations of human rights issues: economic, social, and cultural rights, civil and political, and the so-called third generation rights, which deal with the rights of peoples, including environmental rights, rights to development, indigenous peoples' rights, and a whole lot of other issues. The Commission's work is based on so many instruments, primarily the African Charter, which incorporates international human rights standards and also takes notes of the peculiarities of Africa. But also there are so many supplementary instruments, and I can only refer you to the website of the African Commission to get a glimpse of what these international instruments are, focusing on so many thematic areas. As the speaker before me spoke about the issue of prisons, we have thematic mandates on prisons, on refugees and IDPs, on economic, social, and cultural rights, on women, so many thematic issues which I will be alluding to subsequently. So as I was saying, in terms of my my work experience, one of the key lessons that I have learned from my work experience, first and foremost as a backpacker and as an intern, I think that one of the benefits of that experience was that I was able to learn so much from a lot of top institutions working in my area of interest without the pressure of earning, because these were internships that were voluntary. And I know it can be very challenging sometimes, financially to do this, but sometimes you could get funding from some organizations. For instance, I know that the UNICTR, when I was there, I was funded. I had an internship that was funded by Notre Dame, even though I wasn't funded. But it's a good opportunity, and it's one of the entry points into gaining experience outside of Europe for the students. In doing internships with series of bodies, international bodies, or even national bodies working in your respective areas of interest. I think another thing that I would also like to draw out from my experience is the issue of flexibility and your priorities from time to time. I think one of the reasons why I have found my journey so far fulfilling is because at each point in time I have responded to my priorities, I have responded to my interests. So it has been just living my desires and my dreams, and it's not been work, in the sense of work in inverted commas. And I think that's also another lesson that I can draw from that. I think another issue is the issue of flexibility and adaptability. I know I found myself in a situation, because when I was working in a law firm in Nigeria, I rose to the ranks to become a senior counsel within a period of 4 years. And the thoughts were, you're good at what you're doing, but my mind remained so much, even though what I was doing was also development oriented, because it was project finance and advisory services on energy investments, which is also a very key element of development, particularly on the African continent. We have a lot of extractive industries, and where there's a lot of public-private participation going on in terms of developing the continent and the infrastructure projects. So it was also very relevant, but my eyes were more on policy making, being in a context where my work could advise, impact a wider range of people. And so even while I was working as a lawyer in a private law firm, I was on the side, whenever I had the opportunity, working pro bono in the area of human rights, supporting the network of African national human rights institutions when I could, because that's also one of the areas where I was very interested at that point in time, and they reached out to me and there was a great opportunity. I also did some independent consultancies, and so I sort of kept my feet in both worlds before I returned to the African Commission. Now, what is there in the African human rights system? What are the opportunities? What are the areas that you could be looking at? So as I mentioned to you, the African human rights system is based primarily on the African Charter, but there's since been a plethora of human rights instruments that have emerged from the within the African human rights system. The African Commission has been taking the lead in developing, proposing, and pushing these legal frameworks to the African Union where they have been adopted, because that is the policy body, and that's where the decisions are taken. But the Commission initiates this instrument and which seek to improve the situation of human rights on the continent. And of course, there are also human rights related instruments that emanate from other departments and programs of the African Union, including the AU Convention on Combating Corruption, AU Convention relating to elections and democracies on the African continent. So there are so many instruments, and you can find a list of these on the website of the African Commission. Now, what the Commission does is primarily to protect and promote human rights. That's how it's described in its very vague sense. But in implementing this mandate, it's very huge. And so the Commission has developed so many strategies, and its work includes, like I said, policy formulation, intervention in human rights situations at the highest levels, engaging with states, going on promotion missions, which is some sort of advocacy, receiving complaints of human rights violations and educating those complaints, rendering decisions on them, advising the African Union, at least through its advising the African Union regularly on the situation of human rights on the continent, particularly by submitting, biannual reports to the African Union as provided for in its charter. The Commission also engages with a wide range of stakeholders, such as NGOs. For instance, at the moment, we have over 520 NGOs who have observer status with the African Commission, and over 20 national human rights institutions that have affiliate status. And these are all potential bodies for students who are interested in engaging on issues of human rights and governance on the continent to, to engage. These are entry points. For instance, the list of NGOs that have observer status with the Commission can be found on the website of the African Commission. And these are organizations that are either African, Africa-based, or based outside of Africa, but working on African issues in the context of human rights and governance. And this is, it's a resource pool for people who are interested in working on issues of human rights on the African continent. So, what are the apart from the African Commission? Of course, there are so many other governance and human rights related bodies within the African Union. First, we have the African Court on Human and People's Rights, which was established to complement the protective mandate of the African Commission. It's primarily litigation focused. It's a body before which human rights complaints are filed, and it adjudicates these human rights complaints and renders binding decisions on them. The Commission and the Court work collaboratively to improve the protection of human rights on the continent. We also have bodies like the Pan-African Parliament, which is the body representative of Africans within the framework of the African Union, and amongst other things, they have a committee that focuses on human rights within the framework of the Pan-African Parliament. We have the African Peer Review Mechanism. We have the African Union Development Agency, which was formerly NEPAD, which is responsible for Africa's economic development program. We have the African Union Advisory Body on Corruption, which deals with the issue of financial flows, illicit financial flows from the African continent, and the issue of corruption and how this affects
I think Miss Idowu-Ojo connection went off, but let's just wait a little bit.
Human rights and judicial bodies of the African Union, and you can find out what their mandates are. Even within the Secretariat of the AU, which is the African Union Commission, there are departments that also have mandates related to human rights. For instance, the Political Affairs Department is the home of human rights and governance issues within the African Union framework. There's also the Peace and Security Department, which deals with issues of peace and security, but of course these are interwoven with human rights because usually human rights are either the cause or the consequence of conflict situations that we find on the continent. So there's so many areas that could be looked at in this regard. And what are the possible roles that can be played within the framework of human rights and governance on the African continent? Like I said, an entry point is working with an NGO. It's also possible to work with these various institutions that I have mentioned. A lot of them offer internship opportunities. Even when you go on the website and you don't explicitly see an internship policy or a call, you could inquire, because for instance, at the African Commission, we only adopted an internship policy last year. And we've been taking interns for a very long time. There are some interns that come under established partnerships with some organizations, maybe academic institutions or some organizations working in areas covered by the mandate of the Commission. Or we've had people who have applied directly for unpaid internships and they've been accepted. So I think this is also something, and again, in our recent internship policy, because it's actually a technical assistance policy, we would be publishing it very soon. We also have made arrangements for fellows, researchers, also to be able to come to the Commission and to look at its work, because the Commission has over 30 years work and wealth of jurisprudence and legal resources on African human rights system. There are also, of course, regional, bodies, regional economic community bodies. We have the ECOWAS and the ECOWAS Court of Justice. We have the East African Court of Justice, and these are also potential bodies to engage with when it comes to issues of human rights and governance. The ECOWAS Court of Justice, for instance, is very well known when it comes to rendering decisions on human rights in the region. Another possibility, again, is that even within the framework of NGOs, there are different points of engagement. It's possible to engage as an advocate. It's possible to engage as a researcher. You could come in as a civil servant like myself. So there are so many entry points and so many kinds of roles that can be played. In terms of areas, that perhaps one could be, looking at. Like I said, the mandate of the Commission covers so many, human rights issues. Right now, the Commission has 13 special mechanisms covering some of the notably key human rights issues on the continent: women's rights, prisons, migrants, refugees, and internally displaced persons, the extractive industry, which also covers environment. We have mandate on transitional justice in Africa, on conflicts, human rights in conflict situations, because that's another thing that we're looking at, and human rights is seen as a very important platform for dealing with early warning signals for conflicts on the continent. Related to of course the issue of conflicts on the continent is the issue of transitional justice. Post conflict reconstruction, measures within the framework of human rights and on the continent. There are also children's rights. There's a committee, African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. It's a dedicated body to deal with issues relating to children on the continent. That's also an area, a thematic area, that could be considered on the continent. And there's a body that is dedicated to dealing with that, based in Addis Ababa. Of course, I talked about migration and internal displacement. We've heard so many tales, of a number of illegal migrants, should I say migrants, actually, dying in the Mediterranean. And this is an issue that is being looked at. Forced migration and internal displacement issues are currently very topical within the framework of human rights discourse in Nigeria. I said in Nigeria, in Africa. I'm from Nigeria, that's why I said so. Human rights defenders, again, that's also an issue that is being looked at. And climate change, of course, is also an area, and it's impacting human rights. And of course, we're already hearing about the concept of climate change refugees, and these are some of the things that we need to begin to look at on the African continent. Then I've talked about the entry points. There are also international organizations that work with a focus on Africa, including UN bodies. And there are lots of regional offices of UN bodies that are based in Addis Ababa, including those focused on human rights, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the UNHCR. We have so many of those bodies. We have the UN Office for West Africa, dealing broadly with governance issues. We have the UN Economic Commission for Africa. There's so many of such bodies as well, and these are also bodies that could provide lots of experience for those who are willing to engage on issues of human rights and governance and development on the African continent. I think I would also, end. Before I end, I think I should also mention the opportunity presented by the African Union Volunteer Program. This is a paid, I would almost say, internship program by the AU for Africans, I think within a particular age group. The information is available on the AU website, and it's also an opportunity to contribute to what the AU is seeking to achieve in terms of governance and so many other areas of its programs on the continent, as well as an opportunity for young graduates, to get good experience to be able to integrate themselves into issues of interest on the African continent. And in terms of human rights and governance, to be specific, and for purposes of even getting information on, what you could be looking at, I think the reports of the African Commission that are submitted to the AU twice a year, as well as series of submissions that are received by the Commission, and also statements and findings and press releases that are posted on its website, would be a good source of finding out what is happening, within the landscape, the human rights landscape on the continent from time to time. Of course, right now the sessions of the African Commission are also virtual, and the public sessions are open to all. We are currently in the middle of our 67th ordinary session, and we've just concluded the public phase, which ran for 13 days. So it was open to the public. You get to listen to the various interventions and get an idea of what is happening on the continent. It's the largest human rights platform on the continent for engaging on the issue, where NGOs, state parties, national human rights institutions, international and intergovernmental organizations, and a wide range of stakeholders come together and engage with the African Commission, and also even engage amongst themselves on the situation of human rights on the continent. And preceding the sessions of the African Commission as well, we have before every other session a forum of NGOs working on the working in relation to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. It's called the NGOs Forum. It also holds now virtually. And now, recently, we had inaugurated as well a forum of national human rights institutions, again also which ran virtually. So these are opportunities that present themselves within the African human rights and governance framework. And I would just like to end by saying that, for me, I think as a lawyer, and my experience so far has been that, as I mentioned earlier, your interests, if it's driven by your interests, it is interesting. You identify your priorities from time to time, learning that it's good to be, I've always heard that it's good to be an expert on one thing, but I think also that flexibility and multiple interests do work. I think I have enjoyed that tremendously myself, and I think that being able to constantly innovate and re-innovate yourself is very key to having a successful legal career. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Idowu-Ojo. It was amazing seeing you, watching from you, and listening from you, because I think you have the Banjul's Charter from 1981 is the most complete charter of all the systems of human rights protection. So here in America, we aspire your charter juridically, because we only establish first dimension human rights, and you establish second and third dimension human rights. So congratulations. Thank you very much for your lecture. And now I'll give the floor to Mr. Sodipo. Are you on, Mr. Sodipo?
Yes, I'm on. Yes, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I must confess that it has been as much a learning experience for me myself, as I'm sure it has been for all the people on the call. So, in talking about my own experience, I must admit that perhaps my track has been a bit different from the tracks that the people that have spoken before me, have explored. And I think the difference in my track, in my career path, I think if anything, it helps to highlight the adaptability and the flexibility of what you might call a legal career, right? So. I went to university in Nigeria. I was trained as a lawyer. I was called to the Nigerian bar, and I think the initial key step in my career trajectory was in the nature of the postgraduate specialization that I did, which was in international trade and investment law. And I think there are certain elements about an area like international trade and investment that just creates a lot of flexibilities and a lot of opportunities along different areas. And in the little time that I have this afternoon, what I'll do is maybe just sort of run a commentary through a number of things I've done in the past years up till what I'm doing at the moment with Afrexim Bank. Then afterwards, I'll just draw 2 or 3 lessons that I think will be very interesting for people that are just really starting on their career. And then I'll conclude by just broadly mentioning some areas of opportunity, right? So, like I said, so I did the specialization in international trade and investment law, due to a number of reasons. And after my specialization, I could say up till now, I have practically worked in every single aspects of international trade and investment, as you can imagine, right? So I started off working in a corporate commercial law firm in Lagos, doing what you will expect that an investment or commercial lawyer will do, advising on transactions, advising on legal arrangements related to commercial issues, just basically project finance, mergers, acquisitions, just typically the traditional elements of legal work, right? Then subsequently after that, right, because the key thing is that the specialization that I did was not merely transactional, was not merely a transactional master, right, in terms of teaching you about trade and investment, but it was also a policy-based master, right, where there was quite a bit of emphasis on WTO law, international investment laws, and policy and related policy issues. So after my initial assignment with the law firm, my second assignment was as an advisor with the Rwandan government, with the Rwandan Ministry of Trade, through a Commonwealth secretariat program where they attach or second trade policy analysts or trade policy advisors to government ministries. So in the course of my work with the government of Rwanda, I provided mainly policy advice, advice on programs. I did capacity building, even though I was trained as a lawyer. And yes, I did do some legal work with regards to the negotiation of some international trade agreements, the economic partnership agreement with the EU, bilateral investment treaty with the US, and a few things of such nature. After my time with the government of Rwanda as an advisor, I spent a lot of time also working basically as a consultant, working on different issues, right? Programmatic issues, doing research, doing studies, writing papers, advising on programs. Again, not particularly legal work, but then again, it just shows the flexibility of the area of trade and investment and the different things that can come up under that, right? Then the third thing that I did after that was I spent 5 or 6 years with the African Union Commission, where I worked again as a policy advisor, right? Where again, a lot of the work wasn't really legal work, it was policy work, but then there was also a strong element of international law involved in the work, where specifically I supported the negotiation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, advising on the legal aspects of the trade agreement and things like that. And then last but not the least, of course, at the moment I'm now with the African Export-Import Bank, which is a trade finance bank. But again, I do a little bit of some transactional work, but more importantly, what I do is provide policy and regulatory advice on how countries can improve their trade competitiveness and all that. So now, what are the key lessons that I think students can pick from this? One, I think it's important to have some kind of specialization, right? Because that specialization, it really helps. The law is broad, right? It's open-ended, but having some kind of specialization, it helps to narrow your mind, helps to narrow your focus, and then you can begin to build long-term gradual expertise in that specialization. And my specialization was international trade and investment. Secondly, I think it is important that you should not underestimate the value of the legal and analytical skills that you are taught, as a law student. And the value of those skills are such that, it can be adapted or adopted in practically every situation. Whether as a lawyer itself, whether in a corporate setting working with a company, whether in policy, those skills of analyzing examining evidence, following a certain kind of logic. Those are the things that equip the lawyer to be a problem solver, right? And so if you look at yourself as a problem solver, then essentially anywhere there is some kind of problem, a lawyer should be able to fit in and adapt. So I think it's absolutely important, and I think a number of speakers have said that several times, to be adaptable in your mind, to be adaptable in your focus, so that you'll be able to fit into different situations, bringing your legal skills, your analytical skills, to solve problems. And at the end of the day, some of the basic things that you've been taught in law, including, how to marshal facts and evidence to present, a proper argument. These are things that you will need in all aspects of your life, whether you're making presentations, whether you're writing memos or proposals. Those are really important skills, which I think as a lawyer, it gets ingrained in you, and it helps you bring value to a lot of different career situations. So you must always remember that a lawyer as a problem solver. So last but not the least, in concluding, the opportunities available in the context of international trade and investment. I think one, policy, meaning you could work with your government, or you could work with organizations working with governments in developing policies, reviewing policies, analyzing policies, engaging on policies in terms of advocacy, lobbying, right? There's a whole field of a bunch of opportunities in that area. Of course, as an African, when you talk about trade and investment issues, it is also a development issue for Africa, right? So there is also a work in development. So it's policy, but then it might be development-oriented policy where you work with development organizations, right? So those also present opportunities. And of course, as you can imagine, with trade and investment, there are also opportunities with the private sector, whether in commercial law practice or working with businesses in a broad manner, right? These are all opportunities that are there, and not with the government, not with international institutions, but rather with the private sector. So let me end at this point, and I'm very happy to answer questions if they do arise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sodipo. You talked about something really important, because here in South America, we try to dilute anti-export bias in commercial policies for our integration. So this is very important. Thank you very much. I'd like to give the floor then to Ms. Liu. Please, Ms. Liu, you have the floor.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Lydia. First of all, thank you for being here and watching this online video. And thank you, the university, and also Mr. Laurent, for giving me this chance. So first of all, I will introduce myself and my background about my experience in finding an internship and jobs in the Netherlands. And then I will give some advice, tips and guidance, especially for international students, as you need a work permit after you have graduated and have used your third year visa. So first, I would like to share my slides. Please hold on 1 second. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Yes, okay. So first of all, who am I and why I am here? So why is Lydia instead of other formal students? So as you have noticed my last name and my face, originally I'm from China. I came to the Netherlands 2011 when I was 20 to study the law program. I did my bachelor in HHS, and then I did my master in EU law in Maastricht University. And then during my final year of my bachelor, I did a winter Food Law program in Wageningen University, which is also a great program. And during my studies and my work, I also have studied Dutch. So I went to different schools for my Dutch language. So here is a small tip for international students who would like to find a job and eventually integrate here. Dutch is very important. I mean, when the local people see that you are making efforts to integrate here, their attitudes is even nicer to you. So I went to the Chinese schools for Dutch lessons. I went to Volksuniversiteit in Amsterdam and Breda, and I went to STE languages in Eindhoven. And my area of interest is reading and writing. I like to read and write different stories. So as you can see, I've built a small blog for myself here. And so this is a small blog I built for myself, and I have wrote some of the stories that I want to just share and introduce my culture. I also like geopolitics, and I also like do sports. So for example, swimming, jogging, golfing, tennis, and etc. So while doing these activities, it also gives me some time to think and reflect myself. And during my studies, I also built a BV, a small company together with my two classmates. The name is Snan Informational Consulting BV. It's a company that assists Chinese investors to come to the Netherlands to build their companies. So what we did is that we helped them to find the lawyers, find the notary places, sometimes even providing some legal advice from our side. The business is going slow, but it's still going. And in my part-time, I was also a Chinese language teacher. I was also a host and also a waitress. In this way, by doing these part-time jobs, it also gives me some insights about what's the local people do here, how their life is. And so what I have done here in my past 10 years, I get my driver's license, which is also highly recommended if you would like to settle in the Netherlands. It is very convenient in every aspect of life. It took me 2 years to get a Dutch driver's license. So I would say if you want, be prepared as earlier as possible. And then next, I can speak relatively good Dutch. It also takes a lot of time and efforts. And then I also applied my permanent residency in the Netherlands. In this way, it gives me more freedom while applying for a job. I will touch upon that in a later stage. And then I got my permanent contract after 6 months working. So above all is a little bit information about myself and what I have done in the Netherlands, let's say in the past 9 years. I'm very much looking forward to my next chapter in life and the next destination. And then what I would like to share is my internship and my working experience. I did 2 internships in Holland. One is Colette International Lawyers, and the other one is Everard Immigration Lawyers. They are always looking for intern. So I can show you their website. It's a quite famous law firm, especially in immigration law area. So when I was doing my internship in Everard Advocaten, by then my mentor, he is the head of China desk. He shared me few things that I could remember ever since. So when he told me, when you write a motivation letter, he said, don't overmake it. Just write why you like it, why you are suitable, and what do you want to learn. I think this is also applicable to job applications. So he gave me an example. When you are trying to sell something, if you keep telling the buyer that, oh, look, I'm so good, I'm so fabulous, I'm so shiny, it clings a little bit too desperate and as if like something is wrong. So I think this is also an advice in life. So just do very normal, be you, act natural. And also during the interview, he asked me, what is my strength and what is my weakness? I think this is also a very common question during the interview. So I told him, I said, my strength is that if I have a goal, I will take my initiative to achieve it, whatever it takes. So, for example, when I really like the position, I have traveled from Maastricht to Amsterdam, especially for the interview. And then later, I have moved from Maastricht to Amsterdam in order to work there. So later, he told me he was impressed by my comment because he said there are students who complaining the distance is too far and they want to do the online video. So if you want to achieve something, you have to take actions. I mean, of course, now things is a little bit different due to COVID. And then he also mentioned to me sometimes like Asian people in general is really quiet. We like to sit in the background, do our work very well, but we have less social contacts with the lawyers. So what he advised me to do is to talk with the lawyers, make connection with them as much as possible. By then, I just graduated from the law school, and all the lawyers, they are really experienced, and they are very reluctant to speak English. In a way, I understand, but yes, if you would like to fit in an organization, please do make efforts. And then please also beware in a lot of jobs and interviews, online tests is required. So for example, when I applied a traineeship in EY, I have to do a lot of Big 4 online tests. Please Google if you feel interested. And then when I applied a job in Philips Lighting Signify, not only do I have to do the online tests, but I also have to record videos, totally 3 videos to tell the recruiter who I am, what's my strength and weakness, where do I see myself in 5 years. And by then you only have 2 opportunities to record it. So if there is something wrong, you are not able to change it. In the end, it took me 2 days to prepare this 5 minutes video. And next, when I applied for a job in Hikvision, I was assigned to renew a legal contract. It's a purchase contract with an aggressive buyer and a weaker seller. So I was given an hour to amend the contract to make the both party in a relatively equal position. And then in another interview with Chinese banks, I have to translate, of course, from English to Chinese or vice versa. And in some other cases, I have to do online research about Dutch labor law clause, the interpretation, and what has been used in practice. So to sum up, when finding an internship or job, you have to prepare yourself as much as possible from your knowledge, skills, and how you present yourself. I personally do not encourage to wear too casual in workplace, but in this way, you have to follow your company rule. And then the next, I will give a guidance about finding a job after graduation. This is applicable for non-EU students who need who need a work permit after they have used their search year. So be careful when you find an employer. You have to check, or the employer needs to let you know if they even have this the status to apply this highly skilled residence permit for you, because there is that salary threshold, etc. And in this link, you are able to check which companies are the recognized sponsor. So here I see two approaches. So in some companies, after you graduate and you find a job, they will apply for this highly skilled residence permit for you right away. So in this way, you don't have to use your search year work permit, which gives you more freedom. So if you don't want to work there anymore, you can use your search year to find another job. But I also see some other companies, they do not apply this for you in advance. So you first work there, use your this search year work permit. What I would advise to do is to discuss with employer at least 6 months in advance before your search year residence permit expires. Because one thing we have to, and in the meantime, of course, looking for something else. Because one situation we have to avoid is that you have worked in the company for 1 year and you have a 1 year contract and they don't want to hire you anymore. So in this way, you didn't have the time to look for other opportunities in the Netherlands and you have to leave the country. So try to be smart and flexible over there. And next is that after you have stayed in the Netherlands for a non-interrupt 5 years with a non-temporary base, which means that you either work here or you either stay with a partner who has a job here, then you are entitled to apply for a Dutch permanent residence permit. And there's another kind, EU permanent residence permit. The difference between these two kinds is in the IND website, but beware, before you submit the application, you need to have your integration exam results ready. So in the next part, I will share with you how did I find my current job and some general tips for an interview. For those who feel interested, I also wrote how did I find the job in my blog. So where did I find my job? Via LinkedIn, via Indeed, and also via some Chinese network website. Because I have posted my CV there, then I say, look, I'm a Chinese law graduate who is looking for a job. And sometimes companies would approach me to ask if I would like to take some part-time job to check, for example, contracts for them. And in LinkedIn, what I did is that I set keywords. So, for example, legal, immigration, because I have immigration background, and also Chinese, because that's my mother language. So the job was recommended me in my LinkedIn page. Finding a job is never easy, I have to say. And what I would encourage is that to make this whole finding job process like a full-time job. Then in this way, you will have more discipline. So for example, you have to tell yourself every day at 9 o'clock, I have to sit in front of the computer, do my daily job searching routine. Then again, this way you have more discipline, and then your pressure will be less. You will not feel that you have wasted your time. So what is the do's and don'ts during an interview? I would say first, very, very important, be well prepared. Try to talk to the people, if you know any, or just find them on LinkedIn, who are already working in that company in order to understand what is the company culture. And then the second, try to understand the job file. Do some research. Try to understand what kind of skills you need to have. And if you don't have it, then learn it right away. When I did my job interview in Vanderlande, when I see the job profile, there are some keywords probably I don't understand. Then I do online search and I try to understand what is that. Then just learn it. And for example, some Excel skills probably you are not very familiar with, but it is required in the job profile, then I would say just learn it right away. And the third, dress professionally and be presentable. I have once heard from a colleague saying that one of our director was in military. So for him, if an applicant who didn't push his shoes, he wouldn't have a good impression with this candidate. I'm not sure, I heard. But then again, be presentable and dress professionally is very important. And then be confident, ask questions about the company or the job. The relationship between the company and the candidate, it should be somehow equal. Because for the company, they also want to hire proper candidate to make the company better. And then next, look at someone's eyes when communicating with a smile, of course. I mean, nobody will turn down a big smile. It is also very important to bring this, let's say, very positive energy for daily work and also in life. A smile is always better than a sad face. Try to bring some positive energy. And then most importantly, be yourself. Because let's say having a job interview is like dating in most of the cases. When things is right, you will feel it. So for example, when I had my second round interview with my manager, with my, let's say, future manager, we clicked very well, and we even talked more than 1 hour. So it was the people who need a conference room kicked us out. So during the interview, I remember she asked me, she said, now you have, so previously you have studied law, and the current position you applied is more in a HR direction. What was my thoughts? So my answer was, I only like certain areas of law, for example, immigration, human rights, and not everything. And also during my internship, my second mentor, the senior colleague, she also asked me why is that? My answer was the same. And then my manager asked me, study in the Netherlands, let's say for a non-ABC speaker, it's very difficult. How did I manage that? I said, I'm a very goal-orientated person, which means that if I have a goal, I will reach it, whatever it takes. And the reason why I don't want to delay my study is that I'm a non-EU student. If I have delayed, I have to do a lot of work, my house, my residence permit, and also it's very expensive. And also it's a shame in my family. It's a shame to the family in my culture. So that's why I don't want to delay, and I have graduated on time. So I have answered all those questions just based on my real thoughts, just based on who I am. So I would say be yourself is the key. And this is also a lesson that I have learned, let's say, at work, at relationship. I mean, of course, we also have to present ourselves in a smart way. And last, to sum up my presentation, I just want to give you some tips, which I have also mentioned previously. Invest yourself, learning Dutch, take different courses, for example, Excel, business English, get some professional clothes, make yourself presentable, and also driver's license is very important. Last but not least, don't give up, never give up. Set a goal and try to achieve this goal as much as possible. On the other hand, also be practical. Because under this COVID situation, indeed, finding an employment for non-EU students is even harder. Even though you probably cannot find at this moment, then you have to leave this country and go back to your home country. This is not the end of the world. In this way, you probably will have more opportunities to work in your home country and gain some years of experience. And then if you really like the Netherlands or the Europe, then come back, applying the job again. It's not the end of the world. So when God closed the door, they will open a window for you. And this is also the same for me. Always looking for new opportunities and never give up. So thank you all for your attention, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much for such an incentivizing lecture and presentation for our students and for so many tips offered. Thank you very much. I'd like to give the ground to Ms. Montemea because she will be opening the opportunity for questions. I don't know if I think most of the panelists have already left, but please, Ms. Montemea.
Thank you so much. So we already have a question from the audience watching on YouTube, and the question is directed at Mr. Todibo and Ms. Idowu-Ojo, and the question is, Zambian economist Dambisa Moyo has talked about how aid money to African countries has not worked. What is your opinion on that, and how does this reflect the legal sphere in Africa?
Okay. I don't know if Jide is still here, but let me just take the floor.
Sorry. I think I was dropped off on the question. If you can just repeat the last.
I can repeat it. Yeah. So, what is your opinion on the statement that aid money to African countries does not work, and how does it reflect in the legal sphere in Africa?
Right. I think maybe those are two things. So first of all, I'm not quite sure you will say aid money does not work, right? Because you will find instances where it has worked in terms of achieved its object and its purpose. I think the question has always been about how efficient it is utilized, right? And I think that typically is on a case by case basis. So you will find instances where aid resources have been deployed very effectively and efficiently, and you will find instances where it hasn't, right? But there is such a huge resource gap on the continent that I feel that all resource that is available can be put to some use, including aid resources. Now, in terms of the impact it has on the legal, I'm sure that in certain areas, right, some of the aid resources or technical assistance or donor funding has been channeled towards legal assistance, right? Whether it's in the human rights field or governance field, or even in certain cases, the trade and investment field. I would say in some cases it has been efficient and effective. In some cases, probably not. But maybe Abiola might have some more views about that, because I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure legal services is the best is a classic example in terms of aid effectiveness or aid utilization. I do recall the African Legal Support Facility, right, which is a legal program set up to provide legal technical assistance to African countries for the negotiations of international commercial contracts in areas such as mining, right? And at least from the experience and from the exposure I've had to that, I think it has been, at least quite effective within its narrowly defined focus and areas of interest. But again, it depends. It's a program by program issue. Resources are always useful. The question is always about efficiency, and the efficiency can only be assessed on a case by case basis. Abiola, I don't know if you have some thinking on that.
Thank you, Jide. I think first I would be reluctant to give an opinion on that because it's not my area of expertise. Even though development financing, of course, is something that straddles different spheres of the work of the institution that I represent, but it's not my core area of expertise. But with specific reference to development financing in the context of governance and human rights, I think there are a number of effective partnerships in terms of aid in that area that I am aware of, even both at the level of the AU and as well also as at the level of the various component institutions that deal with governance. Especially, I can speak for my institution. I can't even speak for all. So I'm very reluctant actually to make a pronouncement on that. But of course, there are lots of effective partnerships, especially within the framework of the AU's Agenda 2063, which is the continent, 50-year development agenda. So I think I would leave it at that. It's not an issue that I can give an opinion on as such. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, I would like to open the floor for the ones who are in this call. If any of you would like to ask any questions. All right, then I think maybe we can conclude the session. I'm not sure if Mr. Laurent or Ms. Bastianetto would like to have any closing remarks.
Well, I would like just to thank you again and thank Professor Larange for this incredible opportunity. I think this panel represents the living proof that ENE has